flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Next I have is the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve today's agenda.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is any discussion? Do we have somebody from the Owl Falls Airport?
Not present, so.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next is the approval of the minutes of 12/12/2020. 2/12/2020.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from February 12th, 2020.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is approval of claims for payment of 2/19/2020.
I will make a motion to approve the claims for payment for this week.
So, second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Now I have 2 utility permits.
I'd make a motion to approve utility permits 20-004 and 20-003.
I will second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? One for Minerva Valley, the other one Interstate Light and Light Company. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Secondary roads, do you have anything for us?
Not particularly.
Okay. So, next we'll go to the
In particular,
Yep.
review of the herbicide proposals.
Yep. So I gave you a little
Good.
tab there.
Go to hop up there.
That's fine. So you can look at the tab and kind of see the difference. We only had 2 bids. The company that does it on a regular basis is much cheaper than our local guy, which, you like to go local, but we don't have to do anything either. They also covered all 3 of the options we did. And down at the bottom, I gave you what they actually recommend to do, and he mentioned this at the bottom. He says that most of the weeds you want to control are biannual weeds, meaning to get them under control, you really should spray the rosette stage in the spring and fall of consecutive years. So I asked him to clarify on that. Does that mean 1 fall and 1 spring, or 2 fall and 2 springs? And yes, it was 2 springs and 2 falls. So
Consecutively.
so he's technically asking for 4 times the work that we said, but it'd be over a 2-year period. So I guess that's only double the work, but I don't know.
Okay.
That's one of those things. Is it the right way, or is that just the salesman talking too? I asked Luke, and he said, well, yeah, of course, double it up. Yeah, that would do it, but yeah.
If you don't double up, right now, is it working?
In some
Depends
spots.
who you ask.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know how resistant some of the areas are because they've gotten watered down chemical in the past, and now they're semi-resistant. I think some areas are, and so
If you don't hit it potent enough the first time, it fights it it's that much harder to kill it the second time.
Donna.
what kind of dollars are we talking about?
Well,
here, can I give her my copy?
Yeah, that's fine. I got no one. I broke it down. There's their contract, and if we're going to buy the chemicals separately,
Yep.
then there's a price for that too.
Say that again.
If we buy the chemicals ourselves,
Uh-huh.
that I had left a column there for that. And of course, this DBI service is offered to supply the chemicals, which would just increase our cost, but it would also be one less thing to worry about. They gave me a different recommendation than Brent Perry did, and I haven't talked to him about it, but it looks similar. So it's just a different name on the chemical.
So these figures for DBI includes the chemical?
No.
no.
If you was it the second column from the right? Is that where my chemical is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so then, yep.
what
So
is
that
it
would be
previous-
added to it.
How much does it previously cost to spray per year?
Just your chemical plus your employee. It's pretty comparable. If you compare that to hiring a second employee, and doing it, this isn't that much more expensive.
Now, are they gonna use the trucks you guys bought last year?
Nope. They will come, what'd they say, with 6 trucks? Yep, they have 6 spray trucks they will use.
So what do they do with the trucks they have now?
Wait,
We would still use them for bridges and,
correct. Oh yeah, we'll still need to spray stuff. Absolutely.
Excuse me. So DBI has 6 trucks, how many does Ferris Brothers have?
0 at the moment. He would have to buy one. That is part of the reason his price was so expensive, is he knew he'd have to try to earn that truck somehow. It's hard to start out anything.
So, but really, comparing what we've done in the past to what's being proposed are not apples to apples, because we've never done a mass entire county spraying in one season before.
Yeah, just the spot spraying over
Right.
the county, which
So, actually comparing what was done previously to what's being proposed are 2 completely different things.
correct.
I mean, in the long run, if we decided to go with hiring it done, we could possibly sell the trucks, or at least one of them.
I'd suggest
And then-
waiting. You know, I'd want to wait on
Right.
see. You know, if you guys want to go through this, we see if we like it.
Right. I'd say give it a
Yeah.
couple years,
I would.
possibly sell one, but it's not going to be that much more expensive than paying a full employee benefits and
Correct. And the other
salary.
advantage of that is it would open up Luke to do other things
Right.
all summer.
Which is brush cutting and,
Yeah, so I can definitely go both ways on this. So, but
Yeah.
I mean, their prices were. I didn't think we'd get prices quite this good, so I was pretty happy.
I think if you looked at it for 2 years and try to get everything knocked down, then maybe we can have it back under control to where we could take it back over again on our own.
Maybe.
It's possible too.
I mean, they're pushing pretty hard to get a lot done in a short time.
I understand. Yeah, and 6 trucks with 12 people, that's a lot to get done.
Well, at this time, I don't think we're ready to.
Donna has another question.
These prices, are they annual prices or are they priced per spray? In other
That-
words, if DBI does it in the spring and in the fall, do these prices double?
No. That would be that bottom one where I talk about how the one that's 47.77 a mile. That's for if they came twice a year.
190,000, that's
Yep.
for 2 years, though.
That was my question.
Yes. Yeah, it'd be spread out over 2 years.
Okay.
Wait, what? Where do you see 190,000?
Bottom row, under DBI
Okay.
services.
Yeah, because that's how much they
That's a
charge.
2-year plan, so it'd be a 2-year contract at so
And their price
80,000.
and that price would not go. So they gave me a center line mile and a driven mile quote. So driven mile, they would just, you know, whenever they turn on their machine, that's when they would record. And center line, you're just paying them to go do it all. So, I didn't mention the difference on there. It adds up to probably about the same in the end, so.
And with the, both bids, both contractors were going to use a reporting system to be able to track where they'd sprayed, where they hadn't sprayed, and report that back to us as well with
I
the
think they're good, yeah.
GPS or, okay.
Yeah, I'm not ready to make a decision
Yep.
today either, so.
Just something for you guys to look over, especially
Right.
since there's 4 different options. I do not think we can afford their spraying twice a year thing, but that's just their recommendation.
Okay. Well, thanks for breaking it
Yeah.
down.
Yep.
And
Thanks, Dan.
I'll be in contact. I do have questions. I'd like to see the 2 original proposals too, so.
Yep,
All
I
right.
got them with me, so
Okay.
I can show you after.
All right, thank you, Taylor.
Yep.
Any other questions? Next is the approval of Iowa Individual Health Benefit Reinsurance Association Annual Report.
I'd go ahead and make a motion to approve the Iowa Individual Health Benefit Reinsurance Association annual report as compiled by Nyemaster Law Firm.
I will second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now I have is a change of status for the Sheriff's Department.
I'll make a motion to approve the change of status for Sophia Lupkis. She's permanent part-time, hired effective 2/21 of 20 at $15 an hour.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
She's in communications dispatch. I didn't mention that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Public comments. In other business, this is Craig back here, correct?
Yes. And Jody.
You have a little program you want to put on for the
Yeah.
Old Falls Airport?
Yep.
Come on up. And I sent Jessica your information so
Sure.
she can show it up there too, Craig.
Actually, can you sit there next to me? Thank you. Yeah, I brought a few copies if anyone needs one, but. So, did anyone get a chance to read the information I had sent out? Yesterday?
I got to go through it, Craig.
Okay.
Have that.
Yeah. And I emailed a copy to you.
The only thing I did not put in this document were the zoning laws from Mason City and Des Moines. I think those are just references anyways, but after I read through them, I really thought that they did a thorough job of getting that locked down, and so I think we're going to want to use that in the future. But, and we've had the issue of wind turbines, builders want to come up. Our job as the airport, because we take state funds and federal funds, is that we have to give them grant assurances that we won't do things to harm the traffic in the future build out of the airport. So with that said, really our job is to keep this airspace clear. And this is the future, what's called the ultimate build out of the airport. Matter of fact, I think this one's incorrect, but this one, it's larger because in the future they're planning on putting an ILS, which is a more precise way to get to the ground. Right now we have a pretty decent GPS system, but I might also want to recommend we maybe zone out. This is the current runway now. Zone that out to look like this, so that if we ever in the future wanted to get that larger, landing system, that we could do that without having something in the way as an obstruction. Pretty much the research that I've done on this in the last week or so, the FAA relies on local zoning. They don't want to get into a legal battle with developers. They don't want to be sued. Not that that happens all the time, but so it's really the county and city's job to put up a good zoning program so that that's less of an issue, and the builders know where they can build, because they have to go through you guys, I assume, Iowa Falls possibly, and definitely the FAA, because any vertical structure over 200 feet, they have to get approval from them. But one of the notes I put in here is right now with the current runway, if the weather's bad like it was this morning, you can descend down to 300 feet above the ground. Well, if something were close enough to make an issue out of this airspace, they would say, well, you can go ahead and build that there, but now people can only go down to 500 feet above the ground, which, if someone can't make it in the airport, they can't do their business, and so it just becomes less attractive for users of the airport. So that's one of my biggest concerns, and I get emails from the FAA every week on structure, so anything that new comes up, I see that, and I can inquire with them. Down in Kansas City is where they do this process. There's some other notes here that I had put on about research. I could provide the studies if someone wanted them, but wind turbines can create turbulence up to 3 miles downwind. for light and ultralight aircraft. We do have some ultralight aircraft at Iowa Falls. One actual plane-looking thing that's an ultralight, and then we have a couple of paramotors where it hangs from the parachute. That would be something that would be a concern. And so one of the other things that I think is important to think about too is, if you have a cluster of wind turbines in a certain location, guys may start to follow a certain path because they don't want to be near them. Well, if you take that, our whole 10-mile area and condense it down into 1 mile, you just got a lot more traffic in that small area, so I think that could be a potential safety issue. Possible radar interference from Waterloo or Minneapolis. Actually, Chicago's in this area too, so it could be any one of those three. There was a study done on that, and matter of fact, it's on the windexchange.energy.gov website. I could send BJ a link on that. I don't know the extent of that. What exactly, I don't have any mathematical where things can or can't be, but it's definitely something worth looking into. From a pilot perspective, when you're not so much VFR when it's a nice sunny day, but when it's a day like this morning and you're flying by instrument rules and talking to ATC, you're supposed to be in certain areas of the airspace, not just wherever you want to be. So when a pilot deviates from what we call protected airspace, which this is just kind of the terminal area, there's even some more stuff that's higher level that goes nationwide. That kind of funnels you down into this. But, pilot, as long as he is within the en route and the approach airspace that he's supposed to be in, he's afforded protection from obstructions. So I think as long as the wind turbines, if they were not to penetrate any of those imaginary surfaces, that it should be fine. Now, of course, that doesn't account for one guy that's having an engine problem and has to, maybe descend through the clouds and he can't see anything and whacks a wind turbine, but I don't know, that's kind of a stretch of a scenario too. Already talked about Mason City. I want to look more into control areas. That was something new that the FAA didn't talk about, but it was in both Des Moines and Mason City. I think it's something from a zoning perspective that you can kind of control what's going on in those areas, and those were mostly underneath these. So, I can work with people to kind of match those things up. Talked about all that. So this is essentially a 4-mile radius here, maybe not quite 5. I had one of your maps that I had printed out. It's hard to see in black and white, but the white ring is 5 miles around Iowa Falls, and there's a darker ring that's hard to see, but it goes 10 miles around. And I was able to import every wind turbine in the United States, and then you can kind of match it up to what we're looking at, what we're trying to do. We already have, it looks like maybe on the north side there, up south of Hampton, 20, 30 wind turbines that are within 10 miles. So they're there already. And you can kind of see how we're boxed in a little bit too on the west, north, and east side. So, and even south you can see a little bit. So I'm not sure how many more we want to put closer. That's something that can be discussed, but they're there already. That's the point I'm trying to make there. And then further on in the diagrams that I have in the back, one is Mason City. And I was just showing that there's a wind turbine. It's about 6 miles southeast of the airport, and it's the total height is 135.6 meters. So it's a little less than 500 feet. And I think that's about as big as they get, but I'm not a wind turbine expert. The final diagram in the back is Spencer Airport. And they actually have instrument landing system on this runway for 1-2 that goes from northwest to southeast. And you can see all the wind turbines that are underlying the the approach surface is what that would be called out there to the northwest. So, you know, these here are sloped surfaces, 40 to 1, 50 to 1. So the further you go out, the higher that surface is. And so I think that's how they got the turbines underneath that. So I called and talked to the lady managing Spencer Airport. She said it's not really an issue. I talked to Mason City airport manager. He's been there for 20-some years, and he said that they have some structures up there that are a foot or two away from the airport surface, and as long as they're out of it, it's not a problem. I think the most important thing is, you know, right in the second page, I kind of skipped over that, but I did do a comparison, left column being what the FAA shows for these protected surfaces, and then Hardin County and Iowa Falls. And this, it looks like the zoning hasn't been updated in probably 10 years or more. So we don't even have what our current system fully protected, let alone our future build out. So I think that's what we need to do, and it probably needs to be kind of soon. So I don't know what that process is, but we can work together and figure that out. So I, you know, essentially, I'm not saying it's not a full no for me on wind turbines in Hardin County. It's not a full yes. I try to keep my personal opinions out of it. This is just strictly from an airport perspective, what we have to do to take care of our responsibilities as a national public airport receiving money. So, does anyone have any questions?
How many planes a year do you have?
You know, it just varies a lot, but I think we have, how many number of operations a year? It's like 10,000 or something like that.
And do those operations, I'm assuming that data is used for funding from the Iowa DOT and the United States DOT,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
So that's how those funding formulas, so cutting down or increasing, could increase or decrease funding.
That's exactly right.
It directly correlates,
Mhm.
okay?
Yep.
Does this take into, or what does the airport have planned out for, like, say big company expansion in Iowa Falls or something and needing to bring in bigger planes? Is that all taken into consideration here?
It is. So we're working in a couple of years on an airport master plan, which is a much larger view of the future for the airport. But right now we have an airport layout plan, which is kind of a smaller view. And yes, they are taking into account for base aircraft rising. You know, things can change at any moment. Someone comes in or someone leaves and things just change just like that. But, you know, based on the formulas that engineering companies use, this is what they're saying we would need in Iowa Falls in 10 years, give or take.
And so the new proposed southwest to northeast runway, what's the distance, what's the length on that?
5,500.
Okay,
feet, yeah.
and what's the current?
46.
Okay, so that would, and I know you've told me before that like a day like today, operations kind of are limited.
Yep.
So,
And let me clarify that for
Sure.
everyone here. When jets operate, it's quite a bit different than regular airplanes. They have, you know, they're going much faster, obviously, but if there's any contamination on the runway, and that could just be wet, could have stopped raining an hour ago. If the runway's still wet, that's contaminated. When runways get contaminated, the distance that they need to stop and what they call a balanced field length, it just goes up exponentially the more contaminated it is. So a company like Iowa Select Farms, like today with that snow that just came in, they wouldn't come in.
okay.
So you know, you go up to 5,500 feet. Ankeny was at 5,500 feet for years, and we got some pretty large aircraft in there, Gulfstream stuff,
Fokkers.
and yeah, and they're going up now to 6, I believe. So
Okay.
I think that's the next logical step. You know, whether we could maybe figure out a way to take what we currently have and go up to that a longer distance, or if we need to, you know, keep with the current plan. I think one way or the other,
Right.
you're going to have a hard time growing in the long term without 5,500 feet roughly.
And corporate aircraft aren't getting any smaller, correct?
Not usually, yeah. Especially this time right now. They're-
Right.
That's what
Money
I'm
to
looking at. 10 years might not even be enough as far as your projections, going out 10 years.
Well,
And I'm thinking
Yeah, and no,
Longer.
that's a good point. And this this blue section here is an ILS. That's as big as that's going to get. Things would change on the ground a little bit more as far as protected airspace, but I think if we zoned it out so that these were all set up this way, you should be good. And if we kept, that's another good point, is if you did something like maybe 6-7 mile radius from the airport or something like that, you know, if this needed to grow, it could.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
Well, you kind of answered my question just now, but.
Okay.
I'm the zoning administrator.
Sure.
And I got a letter from the Eldora Airport.
Uh-huh.
Said that within, well, like you said, within 3 miles, it can be an issue for small aircraft. But
Mhm.
then he said if we had a setback requirement of 5 miles, then you wouldn't even really bat an eye.
That's, yeah, that sounds about right. Their Eldora zones are tiny compared to this, but you always want to be forward thinking, in my opinion, with that kind of stuff, because once those things are in the ground, it's hard to go back.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Well,
Okay.
thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
Craig.
Yep.
Good information.
Did we have any other business? Hearing none, I could ask for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We're adjourned.